Hello, hello. All right, let's see if this works on, all right, as far as the signal's concerned. Today I've been asked what my thoughts are about the tongue being to the roof of the mouth. And so I'm going to address that, and I'm going to address posture because that was another question. Does my tongue sit at the roof of my mouth all the time? And the answer is yes. If I'm not eating something, drinking something, or speaking, or whatever, if I'm not actively using my mouth is closed and my tongue is to the roof of my mouth. And it should be, preferably, your entire tongue. So from the tip of your tongue, behind your top teeth, all the way back to the tail of your tongue. So you want the entire tongue completely immersed with the palate. You should notice that the sides of your tongue and in the front of your tongue, they sort of rest comfortably up against the teeth in a sense. So they're on that top shelf. And then deeper up into the palate, we want to have the entire tongue almost vacuum sealed throughout. So there should not be a molecule of air between your tongue and the roof of your mouth, really anywhere. The jaw should preferably remain closed, but not clenched. So we don't want to be clenching and biting, and this is common. People will sort of hold a clench all day and not even know it. So we want to relax the jaw, let the teeth be near each other, but maybe like a couple sheets of paper thickness between the top and bottom row. And what we want to do is, and so, okay, why is this important? That was the follow-up question for the guy who wanted to know if my tongue is to the roof of my mouth. It's important because the tongue is the first muscle that is at the anterior of the body doing an important job for properly posturing the body. At the back of the head, we've got the nuchal ligament, the ligament of Nucha, which is this massive ligament that I believe everybody should have prominently working in their body, but it's not. So the nuchal ligament is at the posterior, and what we need to see is the 8 tongue muscles working together, because there's 4 extrinsic tongue muscles and 4 intrinsic tongue muscles. We want to see these tongue muscles collaborate and to communicate with the hyoid bone here up in the nook of the neck. From the hyoid bone down to the clavicle, we have a series of deep cervical flexor muscles. So in essence, the tongue, if it's not connected to the palate and we are under some sort of load, or we're just chronically, whatever, sitting, standing, doing whatever all day long, if we're just not keeping our tongue educated that it needs to rest at the roof of the mouth, we are missing this anterior front of the body. We're missing this anterior stabilizing connection that happens here to offset and stabilize here. So if you're somebody who's always talking, they never stop talking, that's actually going to be somewhat harmful for how they're probably balancing out their body. So yeah, when your mouth is closed, or excuse me, when you're not talking, eating, drinking, or whatever, yawning, but like your tongue, we want to the roof of the mouth. That's where it should be, suction cupped, in a sense, not overdoing it, but it should feel like it vacuums right up in there, and then it's solid. And then all movement that we're doing should be done with this slightly elevated occiput. So we want the back of the head to be slightly elevated, like it's attentive, like, so it's working. So we're activating this nuchal ligament, and that's what's going to bring our entire body into a behavior that is functional throughout. Because if we don't have this coordinated effort in the neck with the nuchal ligament balancing out with the tongue and the anterior muscles of the neck, our traps aren't going to know how to behave properly. Our levator scapula is not going to know how to behave properly. Literally, we could do, the whole anatomy down the body, how everything is going to be less capable of achieving something that it needs to achieve because this neck situation's not working properly. Okay, the second question was posture. So what are the side effects of poor posture? It could be all over the board. It's, for one, somebody might have poor posture and not have a single thing that they think is wrong from it. They have no idea. They don't feel pain in their neck, for example, so they don't necessarily feel a pain, but they might feel pain someplace else. Well, the posture can absolutely be the causal factor for the pain elsewhere in the body. So it takes a while for people to understand that some of these issues that they're having are legitimately connected to their posture, when they just think, oh, I just have a shoulder issue, or oh, I just have a knee issue, or I just have an ankle issue, or I just have a toe issue, when really it's because their posture's off that is creating this divide in the body, and now they are unable to function properly in this other region. So it can literally create any of that stuff. Now, when we get into, which is pretty basic, but when we start getting into things like cervical instability, when we start getting into these different, deeper, issues that are in there, now people are going next level. They're very harmed by the posture. And, and I'm not saying that posture caused anything necessarily. However, if somebody has, if they're borderline, they're going to find that if their posture game goes down, their entire body's going to become compromised in the process. So yeah, it can be horrible. Now, this is the scenario that I find happens with many people, is they will have chronically poor posture on some level for years, like literally from the time they're a kid all the way through their young adult life or whatever, and then something happens. This is the scenario. Something happens, they trip, they get in a car accident, they do something funny on the bike, they sneeze weird, they do something that tends to go take things to a next level. Well, then what happens is, because that next level traumatic event happened on a body that has compromised mechanics from poor posture for decades, it's right here. And what'll happen is now they get like blown to pieces, and it's all goes away. Like all the stability is gone like this, and they think that it was from this isolated incident. But really, if they didn't have the poor posture to begin with, they probably would have handled that incident way better. They may have not gotten any injury from it. So yeah, posture is a big deal, and this is why I get fired up when I see it. The closer you are to me in my life, the more I love you. I love all of you, but the more I love you, the more it gets to me when I see poor posture. It does. It gets to me, because I don't think it's being given the respect that it deserves. Throughout our lives, it's almost like a contest. I know for me in high school, when I had really bad posture, it was like, yeah, I'm super relaxed. I'm like so relaxed, like I had this like relaxed demeanor where I was like, just like cascading down, and just even trying to mimic that just now felt so weird and not okay. But that would be my thing. It would be like, hey, what's going on, everybody? And then it was like this. And people who do this, you might do this yourself. People are constantly in this state of putting their arms someplace on their body that doesn't make sense, or they're doing these things. It's devastating. Or they're the one leg stander. This is how they exist. They go to the single leg baby hip thing, and they get this thing. It's massively bad. It's so bad when this gets to a chronic state, because everything is mapping off of that. And it might not hurt at all. Or they sit down, right? This leg goes under here. They lean in here. They're like, angled into the side of the sofa like this. Or they're in the car and they always have this elbow here, or they always do this with this arm. It's all magnified over the course of time. So because people's unconsciousness moves forward and creates their physical reality. So when people are just doing their thing, they're going back into these patterns, and all the consciousness on earth isn't necessarily going to help, because it's hard to beat 24/7, 365 of unconscious body programming, these motor engrams that we develop. So the only way to change these deep motor engrams, and so we stop sitting like this or standing like this or doing this, is to get deep into the PMRF of the brain, which is the pons, the medulla, the midbrain, and the cerebellum, which now regulates. And when it's working, the PMRF will disengage poor posture. It literally inhibits slouching when the PMRF is working. So hey, if we can do this thing right, sometimes we reach that PMRF really quickly. People will stand up from even a first session and they'll say, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Like, I'm really tall right now and I'm not trying to be tall, and this feels unusual because I'm not used to being way up here. I'm used to being down here doing these things. But now all of a sudden the PMRF is on. And this is another huge benefit of appropriate posture. It's not just the physical tensions that are creating. When we open up posture through the neck, we get a massive opening of the nervous system. So the entire nervous system, the vagus nerve is like sort of the big kahuna in the whole bunch there, and we see a lot of impact in the vagus nerve. But all of the nerves in the whole body get like this, oh man, you know, it was like they were trapped, they were stuck, they don't have this thorough through of information happening. And then all of a sudden we open up the neck and we decompress the vertebra with this nuchal ligament, and all of a sudden all the nerves work better. It's crazy to see what can happen with people. And I always go to the stories of, oh my gosh, on the very first session, this happened to that guy and this happened to that woman. But it's not even the home run shots. It's the consistency of it. Like, we need to do the work. And that's just 10 to 15 minutes a day of doing some of the simplest exercises that are going to feel complex when you first do them. They feel complex out of the gate because there's a lot of little steps. We're talking fine motor patterns. The cerebellum is all about fine motor patterns. That's what it does. It works on the skilled little tiny movement patterns. So yes, the exercises, they're OCD level concentration. You got to be involved. If you have no ability, if you have zero ability to get involved consciously in your body for 5 minutes at a time, we're probably not a good fit. So I'm going to ask you to really observe your body and think about what you're doing. So if your mind is like 10 miles over here, it's not going to work. You need to kind of get centered and get in place. But you hit the floor for 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. It's crazy the impact you can make on activating this chain up and through your body, getting your nervous system to open up. Everything works better. Everything works better when our nervous system works better. Literally, the entire body's nervous system goes right through this little tunnel called the neck. Everything is dependent on the neck. So this is why it's critical and crucial with posture, because if your posture is going, you could be not only impacting a physical pain in your body, what you could also be doing is shutting down organ function because your nerves aren't signaling properly. And so this is where I get it. The sprinklers at this park are starting to turn on, so it's funny. Okay, so this is where I start going, like, hey, people will have digestive issues. They have these issues that they're dealing with, and they're getting, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do this stuff. I'm starting to get soaking wet. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't do these things, but like, for example, they'll get blood tests done, they'll get this test done and that test done, and now they're going to go and they're going to get all these fancy dietary changes, and they're going to do all these different things, and there's a lot of good stuff happening out there. I'm not saying not to do it. However, if you're going that route to handle your stuff and you want to get deep into changing your diet and doing things for your gut, but you have a vagus nerve that's all trapped and not functioning properly, and it's not actually even helping your guts work right, because that's what the vagus nerve participates in. All that work you're doing over here is for naught, or maybe small gains, when really if you just started at getting your neck right, now all of that stuff even starts working better right away. You might find that you don't even need to do the testing and the different fancy diet changes, because we need signals. The body is built on signals. We need signaling operation to happen. And if your neck is all, texted out and, whatever, and you don't have appropriate behavior of the diaphragm, and you don't have these things working right. Anyway, peace, love, I'm a dove, y'all. It's beautiful out here in Florida. So be good and 1% stronger every day. That's it. Boom.